My father turned his back on me, chose to fund my cousin, and destroyed my future. But in the end, he had to pay the price as I built my life from scratch. The moment I was born, my mother passed away. I never had the chance to know her, but the echoes of her absence shaped the relationship I had with my father. Our home was a shrine to her memory photos, books, and clothes left untouched. It felt as if the house itself mourned her, and I was just a shadow in the corner of a room that was never truly mine. Growing up without her, I often found myself sneaking into her room, running my fingers over her things, hoping to feel some connection to the mother I never knew. But there was no warmth in that house, no solace in the way my father looked at me. He was physically there, but emotionally, he was absent, lost in his grief. It was as though I was living with a ghost, someone who had died before I even existed. It was in those silent, lonely moments that I realized my father blamed me for her death. His eyes, always cold and distant, never showed love, only a reminder of a loss he could never let go of. As a child, I craved his approval, but no matter how hard I tried, I was never enough. I could never compete with her memory, nor with Jake, the cousin who seemed to take the place of the son he always wanted. My heart ached for affection that never came, for a love that was forever locked away in the past. I grew up in that empty house, desperately trying to find a place for myself, only to realize that I would always be just a replacement for a mother I could never replace. The relationship I had with my father was one of silence and distance. He was there in the physical sense, but emotionally, he might as well have been a stranger. It was as if I didn't even exist in his eyes. He went through the motions of being a parent, but there was no tenderness, no affection, no hugs, no words of encouragement, just a cold, harsh silence that filled the house. My father never spoke to me with the warmth a parent should. Instead, his words were often sharp, cold, and filled with criticism. The only time he spoke to me was to compare me to Jake, my cousin, who seemed to be everything I was not: outgoing, confident, athletic. Jake was the perfect son in my father's eyes, and I was nothing but a shadow next to him. I tried everything to gain my father's approval, joining sports teams, excelling academically, and learning things he was passionate about, but nothing seemed to matter. When I won the science fair at school, I was so sure this would finally make him proud. But when I told him, he barely reacted, his attention still fixed on Jake and a football game. I couldn't understand it. I thought maybe, if I just tried harder, did better, I would finally make him notice me. But the harder I tried, the more invisible I became. No matter how much I did, Jake was always the golden child, and I was just there, in the background, trying to prove my worth to someone who could never see me. The deeper I sank into my efforts, the more I realized nothing I did would ever be enough. The day I overheard my father on the phone, agreeing to pay for Jake's entire college tuition, my world shattered. I couldn't breathe as I stood there, frozen, my pulse hammering in my ears. It felt as though the ground beneath me had vanished. All my years of sacrifice, all the effort I put into making my father proud, meant nothing. It was like being slapped across the face with a cold, harsh truth. I walked into the living room, unable to hide the betrayal that burned through me. I asked him, with shaking hands, why he wouldn't help me too, but his response cut deeper than any insult he'd ever thrown my way. "Jake needs it more than you," he said, his voice calm, almost cold. I felt my heart crack as his words echoed in my mind. For years, I had lived in the shadow of Jake, trying to outshine him, only to realize I was never even in the race. All those sleepless nights, all the work I'd done to support myself, it had all been for nothing. My father had already made his choice. Jake was his priority, and I was just an afterthought, a distant second. It was a blow that left me reeling, unable to comprehend how someone I loved so deeply could so easily dismiss me. I thought of all the things I had done, all the moments I had hoped would make him see me, and it all felt like a cruel joke. That was the moment I knew I had to leave. I couldn't stay another second in a place where I was invisible, where my worth was measured by comparison. I couldn't believe it when my father shrugged off my achievement. I had won the science fair with a project I had worked tirelessly on, a moving model of the solar system, intricate and complex, something I was incredibly proud of. For weeks, I stayed up late, perfecting every detail, feeling like this would finally be the moment he would notice me, finally give me the validation I so desperately needed. I raced home, heart pounding, eager to tell him. I thought this would be it, the breakthrough I had been waiting for. But when I shared the news with him, my father barely looked up from his conversation with Jake about a football game. He gave a half-hearted nod and went back to talking about something that didn't even matter. I stood there, my smile frozen, every word I had practiced dying in my throat. The crushing weight of disappointment hit me all at once. For years, I had poured everything I had into trying to earn my father's love, only to be met with indifference. But this felt different. This felt like the last nail in the coffin. The anger started to rise in me, a cold fury that twisted my insides. I had worked so hard, sacrificed so much, only to be invisible. Jake, with his charm and his popularity, always got the spotlight, while I was left in the shadows, chasing approval that was never going to come. I could feel the walls closing in. My vision blurred, and for the first time in my life, I didn't want to keep trying. The rage boiled over, and I had to get out. I couldn't stay another second in that house, not when my worth was being discarded like it didn't matter. I grabbed my things, my body moving on its own, and walked out, leaving behind everything I had once hoped for. That was the moment I knew I had nothing left to give to a family that would never see me. It all fell apart the moment I realized I had no choice but to give up on my dream of college. I had worked multiple jobs, sacrificing sleep, social life, and my sanity to make it happen. But when I found out that Jake was getting his tuition paid for, while my father refused to even co-sign a loan for me, I felt the rug ripped from under my feet. My father's voice echoed in my head, cold and indifferent. Jake needs it more than you. I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that my father had chosen Jake, or the crushing weight of defeat that settled over me. No matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I struggled, none of it was enough. I couldn't keep fighting for a dream that was slipping further away with each passing day. It felt like I was drowning in responsibilities I could never escape. The weight of the tuition, the endless hours working just to stay afloat, it was too much. I found myself standing in front of my textbooks, knowing I could never go back. My hope of building a future in college shattered, and all I had left was the suffocating reality of my choices. I couldn't bear it anymore. I had to let go. The decision to leave was not one I made lightly, but the moment I walked out of that house, I knew there was no turning back. The years of suffocating under my father's indifference, of working myself to the bone for a future that never seemed to matter to him, had taken their toll. I left with nothing but a few belongings and a heart heavy with unresolved pain. My life became a whirlwind of survival. I picked up whatever job I could find, waitressing, cleaning, working late shifts at gas stations. It was exhausting, grueling, and relentless, but for the first time, I felt a strange sense of freedom. Every night, I collapsed into bed, my body aching from the physical labor, but my mind was still reeling. I had no one, nothing, but I was alive. The reality of my situation set in slowly, as I balanced my job with studying for my classes, hoping to hold on to a dream that was slipping further away by the day. Meanwhile, I watched Jake live the life I had once imagined for myself, the fancy dorm room, the carefree travels, the laptop my father had bought, him all posted on social media like a cruel reminder of everything I had lost. Each picture felt like a knife twisting deeper into my gut, but I swallowed the pain. I couldn't let myself fall apart. Not now. It was a life built on my own terms, but it was far from the life I had dreamed of. Yet, somehow, I had no choice but to keep going. There was no room for weakness, no time for regret. I was alone, but in that solitude, I found a strength I never knew I had. Years went by, and as hard as I tried to forget the past, it always lingered in the background like a shadow I couldn't shake off. I had built a life for myself, a small, quiet life, where I found comfort in the people who accepted me for who I was, not for who they wanted me to be. My new friends became my family, and slowly, I started to heal from the wreckage my biological family had left behind. We had game nights, camping trips, and long talks that reminded me what it felt like to truly be seen. But just when I thought I had left it all behind, my father's call shattered that fragile peace. 3 years had passed since I walked away, but the moment I heard his voice on the other end of the line, it all came rushing back. My heart pounded in my chest, my mind spiraling with a million thoughts, none of them good. I hadn't expected him to reach out, not after all the years of silence. But there he was, asking for help. The same man who had torn my life apart, who had ignored me, rejected me in favor of Jake. Now he was desperate, and for a fleeting moment, I almost felt pity. But then, that old rage surfaced. How could he think I would just drop everything and help him after everything he had done? Did he really think I had forgotten all those years of neglect, all those moments when I begged for his love and got nothing in return? I wanted to scream, to tell him how much he had ruined me. But instead, I calmly told him what I had been feeling all along. It was too late. I wasn't the kid who needed his approval anymore. I was done. When I ended that call with my father, something inside me shifted. A weight lifting off my shoulders that I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. For the first time, I wasn't desperate for his approval, no longer aching for a father's love that had always been withheld. I had finally stood up for myself, for the person I had become without him. The pain that once consumed me of not being good enough, of living in the shadow of a memory that never let me live, started to dissipate. I had built my own life, one that was messy but real. Sure, it wasn't the glamorous future I'd once imagined, but it was mine. I worked hard, made friends who truly saw me, and found purpose in what I had built on my own terms. As I sat there, reflecting on everything I had overcome, I couldn't help but feel proud. Proud of the person I had become despite everything, and proud of the strength it had taken to walk away. The thought of my father's regret did cross my mind, but only for a moment. I couldn't let that old wound reopen. His decisions had already defined the kind of relationship we would have, and I was no longer the boy who hoped for change. I had learned the hard way that sometimes letting go is the only way to move forward. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving, and that was enough. I wasn't going to let his mistakes ruin my future anymore.